Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
The number one thing that contributes to customer loyalty is emotions. So move onward and upward faster by gaining significantly deeper insight and understanding of your customer journey and personas with emotional intelligence. With your empathy mapping workshop, you'll learn how to evoke and influence the right customer emotions that generate improved customer loyalty and reduce your cost to operate. Get over your emotional hump now by going to empathymapping.com to learn more. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I get to talk about one of my passions, which is one of hers, and that's the employee engagement aspects of serving customers. Heather Younger was born in Columbus, Ohio, but was raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. She is an only child from an interracial and interfaith family. Heather's mother is white and Jewish, and her father is black and a non-practicing Christian. Her parents divorced when she was 20. Growing up in this type of family was challenging, to say the least. Heather often felt like an outsider, like she didn't have a voice, like the black sheep who was not important. She was excluded from family gatherings because of what she looked like. Her presence was a constant reminder of her parents' marriage. That type of struggle at such an early age created resiliency inside of Heather, a key leadership skill. Heather's career progression is anything but linear or even expected. Heather attended the University of Nevada, Las Vegas for political science and then went on to attend law school. While her family wanted her to be a lawyer, Heather practiced for just 2 short years. She left the practice of law to work for Mary Kay Cosmetics, where she would learn much of what would become her leadership style today. Following her time with Mary Kay, Heather worked alongside her husband in their mortgage company, leading sales, training, and account management. After almost 5 years of working with her spouse, Heather decided to move on to a position with a healthcare staffing company, leading an account management team and large strategic accounts. With the upcoming birth of Heather's third child, she decided to transition to her own coaching practice and spend more time with her kids. Heather is the best-selling author of The 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Loyalty and the founder and CEO of Customer Fanatics. Her organization's mission is to inspire and train leaders to put their employees first. Heather fulfills her organization's mission through her inspiring keynote speeches, leadership development training, coaching and facilitation, employee-focused moderation, and consulting with organizations all over the world on strategies to improve employee engagement. Heather currently lives in Colorado with her husband Luis and 4 kids, Gabriela, Sebastian, Dominic, and Mateo. They enjoy long walks together, cuddling on the sofa to watch a good movie, and focusing on their faith. Heather Younger, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Yes, I am.
I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given our Legion a little bit about you, but can you share with us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
My current passion is really helping leaders understand the power they possess to really change the lives of their employees in a positive way, improving the experience and ultimately engaging them and keeping them longer.
Now, you and I had the opportunity to talk before our interview, and both of us have a strong focus and background on customer experience. And, we talked about how that whole employee engagement component, and I even mentioned for myself, it says when I knew my employees were engaged and focused, the customer was just kind of taken care of. It was just, it was kind of a quid pro quo scenario. It was just done. So when you start talking about the work that you do now and what clients are interested in, do they see different outcomes, or what do they actually have as goals for their outcomes by doing the work on the employee loyalty and engagement side?
I think ultimately all the companies obviously want to, impress the customer and grow the customer base and maintain the customers and grow revenue. Like in the end goal is that if we're a successful business, we take care of the employees, our hope, our goal is that it will impact the customer in the end, right? And then drive revenue.
So when you start looking at the lens that they're looking through and what they're seeing on down the road, and when they come to you and they're talking to you and they're asking about, how, you can actually help them, what typically does the discussion, entail?
Well, it's interesting. I have really focused my efforts on the engagement and the engagement metrics. So, for example, if they're doing a couple clients I'm working with, they're doing best places to work. And so they have a survey and there are findings, verbatim and quantitative type of look. And I'm able to help them dive into that. And then from there, we usually move into employee focus groups where I'm able to facilitate those. And we do those ongoing and we dive into what the big themes are from the surveys. As the focus groups, the employees are empowered to do more. So in the end, through the empowerment that happens, through getting the voice of through the survey, but also through the focus groups, and continually communicating back to those groups what it is the organization is doing and committing to do to change in the areas that they're requesting to be changed, that is what moves the needle for the employees. And again, so then if we go to those employees and then we ask them to do something that may be unique or, different, or make them go outside their zone, they're going to be more willing to do that because they have been heard. They have been empowered. So we have responded. We know this on the customer experience side. It's the same thing on the employee experience side.
Okay. So that's interesting, is because as you were talking, I started thinking about a lot of the conversations that I have about change. And, there's a lot of different methodologies associated with change, and so we talk about inside out, top down, outside in. I mean, all of these things. But what people have come to find is that you kind of need both. And so when you start talking about some of the things associated with employee engagement and the activities that typically rotate around those, a lot of times it's like, what is the company doing for me? And the reality is that it's the employee themselves that oftentimes has to go through a change and transformation process and, really understand what the expectation is and know why they're there, what's the purpose. And so they have to take ownership for their own engagement. So when you start talking about the work that you're doing, with organizations, how much of it focuses in on that agent change process?
The majority of the work I do is with leaders. So what I've found through the different surveys, focus groups over the years, is that in many cases, it starts with leaders. And by the way, I agree. I believe this is the same for customer experience, that if we point to, happiness, I'm not happy to see you kind of thing, happiness to see you with the customer experience side and the employee experience side. It usually is because there's either, if they're not happy, it's a failure on the part of some decision that was made by leaders. So what I mean by that is, for example, let's say it's a software company and there were some big changes made to the software tool. And let's say that was the VP of product. And let's say they never got feedback from customers related to how they want that product to look. Maybe they even never got feedback from employees who actually speak with the customers every day. And so they made a change without asking. So what I mean by that is I look at almost like the root cause for me, and I wouldn't say 100% of the time, but about 90% of the time is going to be the leaders, the decisions they make or fail to make, the way they communicate or fail to communicate, the actions they take or they fail to take. And those are the things that end up driving a lot of the things that happen on both the internal and external side.
Oh, that's interesting. So for me, as you were talking about that, I started thinking about, I'm certified in emotional intelligence. I'm like, okay, well, they're just, they need to improve their emotional intelligence skills, how they're actually being, are affecting and impacting others by what they do or don't do, and their behavior and all of the things that, are interpreted as either trust builders or eroders.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. You have encapsulated it perfectly. It is an emotional intelligence play here. We're not talking about people who are really effective and amazing on their spreadsheets, right? We are talking about what it is you're doing with people. So, one of the things I say, we say it on the customer side, but on the employee side is exactly the same. 90% of employee experience is about emotions, and leaders have the power to control which emotions they unleash from within their people. They make the choice, really. And you are right, though, Jim. I have to say that there are those employees who will always be victims. And no matter what it is that emotionally intelligent leader or one who's looking to grow in that area can do, there'll be those who it's just never good enough. And I'm not talking about those employees. I think that those are really a minority in all of it. And overarchingly, people come to a place because they want to do good work. They want to be a part of something bigger, and they want to feel cared for, listened to, respected, right? And so this is really what my work is about.
That's a good point. Now, I could say that, though, if you're talking about a couple of those employees, I mean, through the course of my years of managing others, I could probably name them.
Exactly. But that's because they're few. It's not like you have, 100 of these, right? You're like, yep, there's like 5 or 6 that like really didn't get it. And no matter what I could have done for them, they just really didn't get it, right? But again, overarchingly, that's not the case.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, and so for me, it was one of those situations that I needed to do a better job of identifying those people and within the screening process and not ever letting them in the door.
we all can use help in that,
Yeah.
right? None of us are perfect, even with our higher emotional intelligence. I always tell people my IQ is about average. My EQ is above average, right? But I still have room to grow.
Yeah.
I need to be better.
I still remember this one time where I was going through the interview process with this one person, and we started talking about a conflict that she had had at work with another coworker. And I could tell that she was holding back on certain pieces of information. So I essentially tried to circle around the wagon to get her to tell me what was the ultimate outcome. And so she got frustrated because I kept asking questions around that issue. And she finally said, well, you know what? I just invited her to go outside. And I was like, okay. I think that was a telltale sign of whether or not you're going to have the next interview.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh.
And then you have some times where you're surprised. I remember this one guy who just was like blazingly beautiful through the entire, process of going through the interviews, and we had multiple rounds, and I'll be darned if, like, within 3 months of hiring him, we had to call security to keep him out of the building and away from us. You just never know.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Again, that's what it's like. The emotional intelligence is key, but you're right. There are blind spots that all of us have,
without
particularly if they push a certain button for us.
Okay, so within the book, The 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Engagement, you actually have named these laws, and I think we should just take a quick run through them and then go back, because I have a couple of questions, if that's okay. Do you want to go ahead and tell us what those 7 laws are?
Yes. So they are: give them great supportive managers, recognize your employees often, give them a voice and do something about it, grow and promote their talents, foster deep connections with them and in them, by the way, make teamwork the focus, and pay them equitably.
Okay, so as I went through this list for me, and part of this is probably my bias and what I'm bringing to the table. I mean, I'm certified as an even better place to work expert, as an employee retention specialist, certified in emotional intelligence, and so for me, I looked at this list. I'm like, well, of course, these are all just so much common sense things, right? But you chuckle. Why do you chuckle, Heather?
That would be why the book is called The 7 Intuitive Laws. Right? It didn't say it was the 7 rocket science laws. You're absolutely right. They are very intuitive. This is not new. It's just that in common practice, we find a lot of gaps.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key. It's like, so for me, when I did go back and I'm like, okay, Jim, remove yourself from it. It's not about you. Is that I was like, okay, but these are like mindful things, right? And that we can just get so caught up in what we have to do and our tasks and our responsibilities and meetings and just go on and on. That's just including work, right? Is that we forget these things.
And that's exactly what it was. I always tell people it was kind of my attempt to whisper in the ear of leaders, kind of to remind them, these are the things you need to do. And most of the things don't cost a dime. I can tell you right now that the people that I have managed, I'm not saying I'm perfect. So let me just be real clear about that. I have some stories of when I was not a perfect leader, but I would say 85% of the time I was pretty darn good. And the ones that reported to me when I left, the things that they said about me had nothing to do with money. It was the fact that I took the time to listen to them. I truly cared, and I showed it even when I had to call them on the carpet. And these kind of things, people are like, they'll write to me and say, you were just the best manager ever. I just love this and that. And it's like, thank you. And it didn't cost a thing. And this is what I try to get in their minds. It's very intuitive. This is basic, guys, but let's do it. Let's be consistent.
Well, and I would dare to say, based off what you said and, just reflecting upon my own experiences, that is, if I've done a good job of keeping, these items, in the front of my mind, and I executed on them, the times that 15% of the time where I wasn't so good at it, I kind of have given some grace.
Yes. And the other thing is I apologize. I mean, the times when I wasn't great, I went back and said, you know what, I was kind of a jerk, or you know what, I did this particular thing, and I apologize. And I think by doing that, I was transparent. I showed them a piece of my humanity. They just grew to respect me more. And that's exactly how I would feel with leaders that I worked with or for, right? The ones that the ones that I would say I had a great deal of respect for, and there weren't many, and it's because, and I say that, not really, in a joking way. There were 2 that I can think about out of all my years of having someone, manage me. And in both situations, they really seemed to be interested in what it is we were talking about, no matter what it was. They really, even if they had to say, and make me go down a different path or make me course correct, right? They did it in a way that still made me feel like they cared about me, that it wasn't about them looking good or that I was making them look bad, so I better do this right the next time, right? It was not about that. And even if it was, it didn't feel that way. So they made me feel heard. They made me feel cared for. They made me feel important by their actions and their words. And those are the ones I remember.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, you said two really key words there is that's, actions and words is, I can probably name two people right now that, within my circle of people that I know who are having frustration just in that issue. There's someone that they report to that they say those things, but then the action is not congruent with that message. So there's an integrity component. Therefore, the whole trust just isn't there. And so therefore, the whole loyalty thing is lost. Absolutely.
Oh, you're speaking my language there, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'm feeling you here. So I definitely agree that trust is the foundation, but you don't just get trust when you walk in the door. I mean, some people do, you get trust when you walk in the door, but usually it's earned. Right? Usually you're doing things that the people see. I remember working with a person he didn't report to me, I didn't report to him. We had to work together a lot. This is on the external customer side. And it was like, it took probably 2.5 years for me to gain trust with him. And I mean, I went out of my way it's kind of my MO. I go out of my way to gain trust. I want to prove that I'm worthy, And so with this particular guy, it took a while. But I remember, towards the end, I remember him finally getting to the point where he saw that when I would advocate for those customers or for anything that happened, even internally with employees, that I was doing all of it so that he could be his best. He could look good. It wasn't about me. It was always about let's meet the customer's needs. Let me make sure that your team is really shining in all of this. And I think he just didn't believe it. I think he didn't believe it for the first couple of years. He thought it was really me trying to get over on him or something. So it was interesting in the end. I think in the end there was trust that was built because of all the efforts we'll put in there.
Well, that's an interesting point that you bring up, because I do think that when you start talking about, the whole 85%, time of getting it right and 15% of a failure, that we find, a lot of the middle ground. People get it half right. Or people only get it right 15% of the time. And that's kind of like the majority of the population. To get a little bit more enlightened and to have the humility and to, the authenticity and to be able to, be one that actually, creates and develops trust versus, erodes it and tries to be that, and can be that person that can help to separate the difference between the company's responsibilities and the employee's responsibilities and where they are in that. And in regards to say, hey, I don't have control of this. However, this is what we still need to do. That's a lot of things to ask people to do from a leadership perspective in order to actually earn that trust and get to that point of loyalty. So that therefore, when they're dealing with a lot of people in the environment now, in the workplace now, a lot of them just haven't had exposure to that. So it's a little bit harder to get over the hump. So when we're talking about, hopefully everybody can kind of feel this, is it's just loaded with a lot of emotion and passion. And one of the things that we use on the show to help drive that are quotes. Is there a quote or two that you can share that helps you?
Well, I think the quote that drives me and kind of defines everything I do is the one I mentioned earlier, which is 90% of employee experience is driven by emotions. Leaders get to choose which emotions they unleash from within their people. That's it. So pretty much everything because when I frame out everything else I do, when I'm talking to employees and I feel their emotions, when I hear all their things in their focus groups, when I do their interviews, right? I hear them, I feel that because I am, like you, that whole emotionally intelligent leader, I can sense it. And then I'm able to take that and also convey those emotions to the people. And I say, so that quote is a North Star for me. And I try to make the folks that I speak to or work with make that their North Star too. And that means they're constantly considering what their actions and inactions do to the people around them.
I mean, as you know, we've talked and, looking at your bio and your background and, talking about finding that passion and really, honing in on that. I mean, there's a lot of humps that we have to get over in order to be able to find that point by which we know of the star or the point that we're following is actually our true north, right? We may be going in a particular direction, but not quite sure where it's going. So is there a time where you have gotten over the hump that you can share?
Well, so I went to work for a company that was going through a big merger, and I knew that there could potentially be a layoff in the future. But I took the risk because in this particular case, I was going to be able to oversee the whole client-facing team, so that it wouldn't just be one portion of it; it was the entire client-facing team. And I wanted to be able to have a more consistent and aligned delivery of experience for customers. So that's why I took that role. So it was great, but probably about a year into that merger, things started to not go well. And the culture really took a dive. And what it was is really about a lack of trust amongst people inside of the main kind of Denver office, but there were other offices around the country and in the world. And it was just a lot of mistrust, like what's going on and who's it? Are there going to be layoffs? And it was just all of these questions inside of everyone's mind. And so the trust was a problem. What happened is no one was really paying attention to the people through all of it. And I went to the head of HR and I just said, I really think we need to do something here. And it may seem weird to most that I was leading customer experience and going to HR asking about, employee engagement and the things that were happening in the culture. But it made sense because over that time there and really my previous job, I was always the one who really would go out of the way to recognize team members, coworkers, colleagues, executive team members. I would just be constantly being that force. And so when I went to her and I said, we really need to do something about the culture, the engagement. And she said, you know what, you are right. I think you should lead that. She told me. And I went, what? I'm leading customer experience. I'm not in HR. I was kind of talking to you, and so she just said, yeah, I think you should do that. And I did, I took it upon myself to create an employee engagement committee there. And we started to work together, and I really we were getting the company over a hump. Even just that office was coming over a hump where we were building some connections between people who wouldn't ordinarily talk. And we were doing all kinds of fun activities and things that would bring people together. But see, what happened is there was a layoff. And they laid off probably in total over 200 people. And I was one of them. I knew it was a problem when I saw the CEO and the head of sales go. But when there was a layoff, and then through that layoff, though, again, there was that there was that epiphany that, I'm having so much fun in this process. And even though I'm being laid off, okay, woe is me. I think I found exactly kind of this place, after all these times of kind of squiggling and wiggling around a career, knowing I needed to be the voice of the customer. I see exactly what needed to happen. And I was like, okay, I need to be focusing on, at that point, it was the customer and the employee. And of course, I got to the point over time that I decided to really focus more my efforts internally so that I could really direct myself towards the leaders of the organization. But so, yeah, that was the epiphany. That's where I realized this is it. This is where my entire working career, I've been this, employee advocate, recognizing employees, whether they're on my team all over the place, just sending notes to leaders about how great they were in their leadership, things like that, where it's like, this is not my role, but this is who I am. And through this crazy time of layoff, I found my home.
So I have to ask you, and then I hope you're open to actually, pondering or replying to this, because I actually grew up where I was a white minority. And so for me, when I started thinking about my my ability to connect with people of different, race, different, creed, different, ability or disability, it seems to be different, because I had that background and experience. And, you're talking about your family upbringing and all of that. Do you think that you have actually found some of the connections with the work that you're doing now that you were unable to get when you were younger?
I think it's interesting that's a great way to think about it and to bring it full circle for me. So I do think that the work I do is directly related to my upbringing, my life. So the whole, interracial, interfaith, being an outcast, not having a voice, not feeling important, all of those things absolutely drove me to exactly where I'm at today, which is trying to help those who are voiceless, who don't feel important, feel that way through my work with leaders. Because if I can help to increase their awareness and improve their emotional intelligence, then they will then hopefully give it back, right, to their employees. And those people will feel not like I felt, right, when I was a child, but better. So that part is a direct connect. But it's an interesting connection you make. And I love that, that you're saying, I'm kind of being filled up now in ways that I wasn't filled up before. And that's so true, Jim. I really never 100%, made that connection for myself. I think that's a good connection to make, that, in the work that I do, it feels so good. And I think there's a level of empowerment that I just didn't have as a child. And now I feel so empowered, and I feel like I'm always helping others become empowered. The employees are empowered because they can use their voice. The leaders are empowered because they know they have the power to change all of this. So it's really kind of cool to be kind of this backwards position now. So I would say yes.
Well, I mean, for me, I just, listening to your story and getting to learn more about you, I mean, I'm like, okay, I mean, we have just so much more, we're brother and sister from another mother. I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, and because I feel like I found I'm finding, my place more so than I ever had before, and being able to get some power and control and centering, as well as, true pointing that I just couldn't get as a child. So when you start thinking about where your course is going, right? I mean, you got a lot of things going on. You got a large, pretty large family, and, you got a husband who's got his own business, and that's still going on. I mean, you're trying to grow your practice and writing a book. But if you were to say you had one goal of all of that, what would it be?
One goal of all of that. So that's you're not even talking about business goal.
No.
I would have to say, take better care of me. So as you can imagine, it's what you just said, building a business, having 4 kids, being an only child, so not really quite used to dealing with the multiples we have in our home. I tend to, pour myself out to every single person around me. So, I mean, there's really not one person who reaches out to me that I don't somehow respond to. It could be a total stranger. It doesn't really matter. I kind of feel it as my mission. But in the end, right, then I sometimes get left where I'm empty. So I would have to say that a big goal would be personally is to, be better at filling myself up in many different ways.
Definitely. We hope that you continue to do your work and that you find yourself more filled up so that you can continue doing that work. And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Heather, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet relevant responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Heather Younger, are you ready to hoe down?
Yes, ready to hoe down.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Doing too many things at one time.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Don't worry about what others are doing. Lead yourself first.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I have insane drive and a desire to get better every day.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
I care.
What would be one book that you'd recommend to our Legion? And it could be from any genre. And of course, we're going to put a link to the 7 Intuitive Laws of Employee Loyalty on your show notes page as well.
Who moved my cheese?
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Heather Younger. Okay, Heather, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you have been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you. But you can't take everything back. You can only choose one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
I want to own my past and do a better job of harnessing my voice for the benefit of others and not be afraid to do what I think I want to do because I'm afraid to fail. my life has kind of been here and there filled with opportunities where I could have gone one direction or another and maybe I'd be better off. And because I was pondering it too much or fear of thinking it through too much, I didn't go down that road. And I think it may have slowed down my progress.
Heather, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Connecting with me probably best is via email, heather@customerfanatics.com. That's FANATIX. I always tell people that. And also, you know what? I'm on LinkedIn. And so going there, connecting, following me, I'm pretty darn active. So if you like what you heard today, I would definitely do it that way.
Heather Younger, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.